Entitled neighbor stole water and electricity from me to fill up his illegal pool while I was gone. I contact the HOA and get revenge on him. So here is what happened. Subscribe to Ripe on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. This happened a few years ago, but I thought with all the stories of bad HOAs, I will tell you all one of how I actually used a good HOA to my advantage to deal with my horrible neighbor. Now, to start things out, the first part of this story happened when I actually was not home. My family took a 3-day weekend to go and visit some family. Now, my neighbor is kind of the guy that thinks he deserves everything and we should all revolve around him. I obviously try to avoid this guy at all costs, but when you live right next door, it tends to be a little bit difficult. My approach was to find an excuse to get away as soon as I could while trying to not really listen to what he has to say, because all of it really was idiotic and just gloating about himself. Back to the weekend where I was oblivious to everything going on. Neighbor decided that he should not need to pay for water or electricity if the house right next to him was not even going to be there. Why run up his own bill when he could run up mine? He took a hose and attached it to the spigot in my backyard. Then he dumped the other end into his pool and just turned on the water. Now, I don't know the exact amount of water it takes to fill a backyard swimming pool, but I will say it's not a small amount. It was not like one of those tiny rubber pools that you get for your toddlers. This was a big one that he had installed right into the ground. We will get back to the pool a little bit later though, because he figured, why stop at water? He ran a huge extension cord to my backyard where I have an outlet, and honestly, it's not too far away from the spigot. I would not be surprised if his plan was to just steal the water and then he saw the outlet while he was over here. He then proceeded to use my electricity to run some electricity in his backyard, and I would assume by the bill into his house as well. When I got back though, it was a little obvious something had gone down even before I got any kind of bill. My grass had a dent in it, like something, the hose, had been lying on it for a while. Luckily, I had video cameras and decided to go look at everything that happened when I was away. What I found out was exactly what I just told you above, and when I saw all of this, I was really angry. I was sick of this guy thinking he was the white-hot center of the universe and wanted to take him down a few pegs. I called the police on him because stealing my water and electricity was clearly illegal. Not to even mention that to steal it he would have trespassed onto my property. The thing is, that solution just did not feel satisfying enough for me, because they gave him a warning for the trespassing and told him when I got my bill breakdown for water and electric, he would have to pay for what was used that weekend. For me, that felt like a slap on the wrist and was not going to discourage him from doing something like that again. I wanted some bigger revenge, and I got it not from being sneaky or knowing some big loophole. No, I was going to get it from things that he flat out told me himself on those occasions I wanted to get away from him. I told you we were going to get back to his pool, and this is the part that it becomes important. One of his self-important rants, he mentioned that the fees for a permit and building codes for a pool were so expensive that he did not even bother dealing with all of that. He just made sure that it was going to fit in a spot that nobody would notice and he would get away with saving all of that money. I also mentioned in the beginning to keen readers that I was going to be using the HOA in order to get my revenge on this neighbor. Now, the HOA in my neighborhood is actually fine compared to other stories that I have read. They get involved when it is needed, but for the most part they just let us live our lives. I make a call to the HOA and tell them that the neighbor has a pool that looks like it goes against many of the guidelines that the HOA has regarding safety. While neighbor may have looked at permit laws and building codes for the pool, he was too arrogant to look into the HOA rules. When I told them that I felt there was a huge safety concern with it, they were not slow to come and check things out. I could hear them talking to my neighbor through the yard, and while I did not get every single word, I got the gist of things. First of all, the HOA was telling him that they tried to look up the town records for his pool, but could not find any. While I cannot confirm it, I know they probably called the town to tell them about the pool after they saw it, and there was no record of it. Then the HOA member started walking around his pool with a clipboard marking down everything that was in violation due to the HOA policy about private pools. I know most people hate when the HOA butt in, but honestly, the things I was hearing her say did not even seem unreasonable to me. For one, since it was an in-ground pool, they were supposed to have some kind of permanent ladder to prevent people from getting stuck in the pool. They also had it too close to their back doors, which would be a danger to people exiting that part of the home. They were also supposed to keep it covered when not in use to stop animals or even small children from falling in and nobody being around to help. Maybe some of you will think that is overboard, but I personally think that it is nice to have safety measures because pools can be dangerous. The HOA and town combined told him that he had to get rid of the pool or they were going to do it for him. He had to spend a good chunk of money removing the entire pool and having to fill the hole it left with dirt, making his backyard look pretty horrible. I'm pretty sure if the town seriously got involved, he would have ended up getting fined for building the pool without permits or something like that. If he had won, he would have known to follow all the HOA rules regarding pools. The best news of the whole thing was that I never actually had to listen to this guy talk about himself again. He moved away a couple months after the entire thing, and while I don't know where he went, I know he left this neighborhood. If this guy did not decide to be a thief, then he would probably still to this day be living in that house with his nice pool. Crossing a neighbor that knows one of your big illegal secrets is a pretty dumb thing to do. Maybe this taught him that everything does not revolve around him, and if he's going to fill a pool, to do it with his own water next time. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I gotta say, in general, I really dislike it when people brag about things. However, in this case, you have to be pretty stupid to brag about something illegal and then even steal electricity from your neighbor and not suspect that the neighbor would get some sort of retaliation. And the next one is a pretty interesting saga from r/legal advice, and it is titled, "My ex lied about vaccinating our immune-compromised 8-year-old daughter. She now has chickenpox and is in the hospital. I want my ex as far away from my daughter as possible." Me and my ex split up before our daughter's birth. There were a variety of reasons for this that I won't get into here. One of them was her anti-science beliefs. She does not trust vaccines and doesn't trust science or medicine at all. And well, this sucks because our daughter was born premature and immunocompromised. We have 50-50 custody of her, but due to her condition and my wife's anti-science beliefs, we argue constantly on how to handle her. Well, recently, our daughter has made incredible progress and last year was given the go-ahead to get vaccinated for certain viruses, including chickenpox and the flu. My ex went crazy about this and started making my life a living hell. She also threatened up and down to take me to court. Around this time, I also got a new job that paid a considerable amount more than my old one. When this happened, I decided I wanted to move my girl into a private school that has a program for immune-compromised children and offered to pay 100% of the tuition. And by the way, it's awesome that such a program exists. Anyway, the only problem, for her at least, is that this school requires students to be fully vaccinated up to their medically allowed limit in my daughter's case. My ex fought me up and down on this and we ended up in court. The judge agreed with me and ordered my daughter to be vaccinated. My ex had a full breakdown, but in the end agreed only on the condition that she get to take her to lessen the emotional damage and make sure the doctor does not poison her. I demanded the medical forms confirming this and she agreed, so my daughter finally got vaccinated and last fall started at her awesome new school. Well, last week my daughter got incredibly sick and had to be rushed to the hospital from school. She somehow had contracted varicella, which is chickenpox, despite being vaccinated for it. I have been stressed out from the minute I got the call and confused as all hell how she got it. My daughter must have picked up on this and thought I was mad at her because when I was visiting her in the hospital, she decided to tell me the secret mommy promised to make her keep. It turns out my ex did not vaccinate her. She made my daughter lie about it. Instead, she has been using special oils and salts to keep her from getting sick. But what about the forms I got saying she was vaccinated? They were fake. I called the doctor and it turns out she never went in and he never signed any forms confirming she was vaccinated, so my ex lied and faked forms to convince me that she was vaccinated. I am pissed, to say the least. My daughter is in the hospital because my ex decided to let her beliefs come before our child's health. My ex does not know that I know yet, and I told my daughter not to tell her. I want her gone now. How do I approach this to make sure my ex suffers for this? I have the forms she handed me and text from the day she took her. I also have the doctor on record saying that he never signed off on these and that the ones I have are forged. I am planning on speaking to a lawyer, but I would like to know going in what to do. Thank you. And then a user in the comments said she was ordered by a judge to do something. Not only did she not do it, but she forged medical documents and lied in the process of not doing it. Beyond any other issue that she could get in trouble for, aka neglect, child safety issues, CPS issues, this is unambiguously problematic. If you have a copy of the initial court order, you could probably request one if you don't have it. That should be one of the first things you bring up with an attorney. Well, a lot has happened since that day. My daughter is safe with me and was let out of the hospital about a week ago. She is getting better every day. I know though, you guys want the full story, so here it is. After I made that post, I took the advice given to me, and the next time I saw my daughter, I told her that it was wrong of me to ask her to keep secrets and that it is okay to tell her mom. Along with that, I saw a lawyer recommended to me by a trusted party. When I went in to see him, he told me that this is a case lawyers salivate over and that my ex is in a lot of trouble. I immediately filed for emergency custody of my daughter. I also got into contact with the doctor again and explained the situation fully to him. He says that while he will not be getting lawyers involved, that he wishes for me to submit the evidence to the police and file a report. Along with this, my lawyer has gotten into contact with the court that originally ordered us to vaccinate our daughter and has handed over everything I gave to him. He has advised me to stay quiet on this matter, so I will leave it at that my ex is in a lot of trouble with them. During this time, my ex started to get suspicious. Maybe it was because a friend told her about a post on Reddit and she freaked out. Who knows? A few days later, when I saw her at the hospital, we had an altercation. She became hysterical and yelled various threats and insults at me, including telling me that I want to poison our daughter right in front of our sick child. She was escorted out of the building and the head nurse had banned her from coming back. After this, she sent me a barrage of texts telling me that I'm a monster and that if she had vaccinated her, that she would be dead now. This was sent to my lawyer, and as he puts it, she is what lawyers dream of when they hear who's on the other side of the court. Outside of this, I've been advised to stay as quiet as possible, so I will leave it with this. This week I received emergency custody of my daughter until our custody hearing later this year. I have heard that the DA is slowly getting ready to move forward with a multitude of charges against my ex, and that will land her in jail soonish. And that's really it for now. I'm going to follow the advice given by my lawyer and say nothing else to anyone. I don't want the media involved in this, so for a few reasons I have left this as fake as possible. When it is all said and done, if the interest is still there, I may come back again. But for now, thanks for the advice. And now the final update to the story. I had completely forgotten about making that post, as the last few years dealing with a global pandemic and an immunocompromised daughter have aged me 3 decades. But I saw a post recently talking about my own posts and it came back like a ton of bricks. After wrestling to get back into this account, here I am. I hope you're all interested in an update. Well, to give the short answer first, I have full custody of my daughter and my ex is barred from having any contact with her. The long answer, my court battle between my ex and me was a grueling process, one of the worst periods of my life. It took over 5 months from the time I got emergency custody to get full custody of my daughter. In retrospect, those 5 months were not as long as they felt, but they felt like the longest months of my life at that point. My ex's harassment at that time got worse, even coming to my house and attempting to force herself in to take our daughter. She was arrested for this and charged with attempted forced entry. Before she could bail herself out, the DA decided to throw the book at her for forging medical documents. She ended up spending a month in jail for this, which unfortunately got our custody case continued. The upside of this was I was given a protective order for me and my daughter out of this, one that bit her in the ass when we finally got in front of a judge. I was given full custody of my daughter. My ex and her lawyer pissed off the judge by trying to claim that I had planned this all from the start, meaning that I supposedly forced her into a corner to vaccinate our daughter so I could use her response to initiate the custody battle. Her actions, her upcoming hearing for committing felony forgery and forced entry, along with the protective order, convinced the judge that my ex was more than a danger to our daughter. She lost all custodial rights and as of now is not legally allowed to contact her in any form. My protective order was extended by 2 years as well, but I didn't need it as it was only a few months later that she went to prison. My ex pleaded out, they dropped the forced entry charge and she only got 2 years in prison for the forgery, but was still hit with the felony. She was released early due to COVID though. Since then, luckily, I've had no contact with my ex, outside of getting the child support I am owed. I am not really inclined to keep tabs on her personal life, but I know that she went off the conspiracy deep end. Other than that, she has disappeared from my daughter's life entirely. As for me and my daughter, the past few years have been a living nightmare. We moved to a new state and I had to put her into fully online schooling. But our lives are great and amazingly, my daughter was able to get the COVID vaccine only a month ago and is cleared to go to physical school once the summer ends. This saga of my life has taught me so many things and I am grateful every day to have my daughter with me, safe and in a place where she can slowly grow and get healthier. It is kind of touching that so many people are interested after all this time in a normal guy like me and my daughter. I genuinely hope this is the last update I have to make. Thank you for your interest and see you all over the next horizon. And yeah, Ripe Stars, that is indeed a happy ending to an absolutely crazy saga. If you wanna hear more legal advice stories because we have not done them in a while, then please let me know in the comments. And the next one is titled Christmas Revenge. My family does a gift exchange drawing each year for Christmas. We all reach into a bowl and pull out a name on a slip of paper. That is the person for whom we are to buy a gift for the big Christmas get-together. I honestly hate this ritual as it is a bundle of stress to find something for someone you barely know, but we do it because the family always has. One year I drew the 60-year-old husband of my 57-year-old great aunt. I knew he and my aunt were very well off and really neither wanted nor needed anything. I knew also that the budget we had for gifts of $50 maximum was not going to get him anything within his or her taste level. Since he did a lot of driving for his work, I found him a rather nice set of tools to keep in his car trunk should he need them. He opened them during the party, seemed appreciative and thanked me. Fast forward 3 years, I saw my gift that Christmas was from my great aunt. When I opened it, I immediately recognized the tool set I had given him 3 years before. Even the tape I had put on part of a torn label was there. I paused, broke into a big smile and excitedly exclaimed that this was incredible. As when I bought her husband a set 3 years ago, I had wanted to get a set for myself as well, but the store had told me the set was discontinued and no longer available. I gushed that she must have gone to a lot of trouble to find one just like the one I gave him 3 years ago. And yes, I mentioned giving him a set 3 years ago a few times. I then made a big show of running over, hugging her and saying thank you. She and he just had odd smiles frozen on their faces. See, my great aunt has a reputation whispered behind her back of being incredibly cheap and regifting most of whatever she receives. Several relatives have suspected their gifts from her were regifts as the packaging or box was obviously not new and even had evidence of prior wrapping. One cousin actually found my great aunt's initials engraved on a pendant from her. I, however, was the first to make a big public production out of my discovery, even though I never said I recognized it as the exact same set I had given him. My mom later took me aside and chastised me for what I did, as she felt my great aunt was visibly embarrassed and said she had left very soon after the gift exchange. I just looked at her and innocently asked what I had done wrong by thanking her for a gift. After all, I really had wanted it. And you know, Ripe Stars, this story reminds me of a TV show I really enjoy watching on YouTube called The Biggest Cheapskates. They always show these people there that are super crazy when it comes to saving money. However, it is not always people that simply don't have money. Sometimes it is supposedly rich people, at least, who even go as far as to reusing tissues and toilet paper. I suppose the TV show is fake, but it is still very entertaining nonetheless. Anyway, the next one is titled Face the Consequences for Being a Douche. I have twin nieces, and a couple of years ago I donated a kidney to one of them. As a result of the surgery, I have substantial abdominal scarring. I don't let that bother me, and I don't cover it up. So my nieces came to stay, my wife and I took the day off work and we all went to the pool. We are all just chilling in the jacuzzi area. I get up and go off to the bathroom. When I came back, I noticed these young women staring at me, and then they started talking loudly and laughing. I have a slight hearing impairment and I couldn't hear what they were saying. However, my nieces could. Next minute, niece number 1 starts crying. I asked her what is wrong, and it was because these women were laughing about my scars. As a transplant recipient, she has more scarring than me, and she is self-conscious about it. Niece number 2 hears all this and decides to start crying as well. My wife heard too and confirmed that this is what was said, so now I have 2 upset kids to deal with. They wanna leave, so we sent them off to get changed. Meanwhile, I go and talk to one of the lifeguards and say I would like to see the center manager. He happens to be an old flatmate of mine, and we work on some charity stuff together. He comes down and my wife and I explain what happened. He goes over and talks to these women. He writes a very few things down in his notebook. They all leave looking very pissed off, and he comes back. He has banned them for 3 months from the facility, including the gym. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I honestly cannot understand people like this that make fun of others in public or in private. I just don't get how you can be so interested in someone else in a negative way. I mean, if they would come up to you and ask, oh, what happened to you, does this hurt or whatever, then it might still be intrusive, but at least it would not be as mean as this. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the stories, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.